Hey everyone, and welcome back to Adams Athenaeum. Let's take a look together through the news and records of our times as we try to shed light upon the unvarnished truth. Now today we need to fact check the President's State of the Union speech from last week. We're going to start over here at CNN, just so we can kind of get a clear view. We're going to go through CNN, PolitiFact, and then what else did I have here? I believe the New York Times, just to get some, or USA Today, sorry, to get some context between the right and the left posting fact-checked articles. So let's start here with CNN, fact-checking President Biden's State of the Union speech. This was written February 8th, so just 4 days ago. And in here it says, President Joe Biden delivered his second State of the Union address on Tuesday. Here is a fact check of some of the claims from Biden and the Republican response by Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Cutting the deficit. Biden claimed his administration cut the federal deficit by more than $1.7 trillion. Facts first. Biden's boast leaves out important context. It is true that the federal deficit fell by $1.7 trillion under Biden in 2021 and 2022 fiscal years, including a record $1.4 trillion drop in 2022, but it is highly questionable how much credit Biden deserves for this reduction. Biden did not mention that the primary reason the deficit fell so substantially was that it had skyrocketed to a record high under then-President Donald Trump in 2020 because of bipartisan emergency pandemic relief spending. And then it fell, as expected, when the spending expired as planned. Independent analysis say Biden's own actions, including his laws and executive orders, have had the overall effect of adding to current and projected future deficits, not reducing those deficits. I mean, this is kind of typical of these speeches. You get maybe some of the truth. You're definitely not going to get the whole truth. Even the same for Trump, Obama, Bush, Clinton, anyone you want to bring up. But how much is lies? How much of it is omitted truths? How much of this is what we see every day on the left? Next section, small business applications. Additionally, over the last 2 years, a record 10 million Americans applied to start new small businesses. Facts first, this is true. There were about 5.4 million business applications in 2021, the highest number since 2005. Very good. We had one section so far out of two, 50-50. Not a great start. Unemployment among demographic groups. Biden touted low unemployment rates, citing near record low unemployment for Black and Hispanic workers, which is accurate. The Black or African American unemployment rate was 5.4% in January 2023, which fell from January 2021, where it was 9.2%. The Hispanic or Latino unemployment rate was 4.5% in January 2023, which fell from 8.5% in January 2021. Trump and the national debt. Biden criticized the fiscal management of former President Donald Trump's administration, quoting, nearly 25% of the entire national debt, a debt that took 200 years to accumulate, was added by just one administration alone, the last one. Now, if you've seen me fact check CNN before, you know I don't like Daniel Dale. He's a liar. He doesn't always get his shit straight. But here he goes. He says, facts first. Biden's claim is correct. Now, we're going to expand upon this later because he's not correct. What he's about to say is correct. Let's break this down. He says the national debt, now more than $31 trillion, increased by just under $8 trillion during Trump's 4 years in office, in part because of Trump's major tax cuts. It's important to note, though, that some of the increase in the debt during the Trump era was because of the trillions in emergency COVID-19 pandemic relief spending that passed with bipartisan support. The national debt spiked in the first half of 2020 after increasing gradually during Trump's first 3 years in office, and because of spending required by safety net programs that were created by previous presidents. A significant amount of spending under any president is the result of decisions made by their predecessors. So, they note that, yes, Trump spent $8 trillion during his first 4 years in office. Obama spent, I don't have it off the top of my head. He spent over $8 trillion Was it? It might have been 7. Don't quote me on this. I think we're going to pull it up in one of these later articles. Let's skip to this next article. So this one, they quote is correct. I'm calling BS, and we'll get to that later. Manufacturing investments. Biden claimed that a new law, the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act, will produce hundreds of thousands of new jobs. Facts first. Biden's prediction about future job creation is obviously beyond the scope of a fact check. I kind of agree, but okay, here's the thing. He's talking about manufacturing chips for your cars and your phones and basically everything else that we use modern day, right? What are most of these chips made out of? Rare earth minerals, cobalt, lithium, and others. How are these rare earth minerals mined and brought to America? Horrific mining, where you've got children all the way up to women and grandparents' age, men and women slaving away in mines in adverse work conditions with no health regulations or safety equipment. They've got a piece of cloth over their mouth while they're inhaling metallic vapors for years, decades on end, just so that we can have our cell phones and our laptops and all this stuff that we're using to record this episode and that you're using to watch it on. I would say it may produce hundreds of thousands of new jobs. But what will be left of the earth? Are these jobs going to be slave jobs where we have to mine these minerals? Let's go to the next section. The unemployment rate. Touting economic progress, Biden said the unemployment rate is at 3.4%, a 50-year low. They agree. Electric tax vehicle credits. Biden, speaking about the Inflation Reduction Act, said families save more than $1,000 a year with tax credits to purchase electric vehicles and energy-efficient appliances. This claim needs context. While Inflation Reduction Act tax credits will help save families money on their energy bills, it could take years for electric vehicle tax credits to become fully available. Very good. Child poverty being cut in half. I mean, this is broader than just Biden. This is the entire Western world has cut child poverty in half. That is not simply due to Biden. Gas prices down since their peak. It's correct. He didn't mention, however, that gas prices are still significantly higher today than they were when he took office. And they try to say that it's important to note that presidential policy has limited impact on gas prices. It's really funny that you say that when it was every policy that Biden enacted or executive order that he just shoved through the door made gas more expensive. Did you notice that? Everything he did made gas or the purchase of natural oil or refined oil more expensive because he cut off our way of doing it, our supply lines. I'm over CNN. There's only so much I can take of them trying to cover for him. Well, I mean, even they couldn't cover for him entirely. None of these websites could. If you just do a simple DuckDuckGo or Google search of Biden's State of the Union speech, you'll see everyone doing fact checks on it because he lied to you. Think about that. Biden was put on front of the world stage to lie to you, to whisper to you, and then to yell at you about things that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense about why he's yelling about them. Instead of talking about, I don't know, the Uyghur Muslim genocide in China, instead of talking about his failure of addressing the border crisis, which has led to a fentanyl crisis, he tried to bring up the fentanyl crisis, but refused to talk about where it's coming from. Where is the fentanyl coming from, Joe? Oh, that's right, from China. Through Mexico. Do you think maybe if we had finished this border wall, that could have helped stop some of this fentanyl coming in? Maybe if we actually took the border seriously, maybe if you actually sent your border czar Kamala Harris down to the border to do her job and protect the border and American citizens, maybe we wouldn't have a fentanyl crisis, along with this immigration crisis that you've continued to exploit and exacerbate illegally flying migrants across the country in the dead of night. And then you complain when some of these illegal migrants are sent to your house or Martha's Vineyard. Anyway, back to the State of the Union speech. This is from PolitiFact, fact-checking Joe Biden's 2023 State of the Union address. And in here, we're going to find some discrepancies where PolitiFact, like me, knows where Joe Biden lied, omitted more truth than what CNN wanted to admit, or when CNN would call it true, it actually really needed more context because when you expand the context, what he said is not true. So let's begin. Going to scroll down a little ways, skip through some of the mumbo jumbo. Okay. All right, we're going to start here. 30 million workers, this is what Joe Biden said. 30 million workers had to sign non-compete agreements for the jobs they take. 30 million. So a cashier at a burger place cannot walk across town and take the same job at another burger place and make a few bucks more. They just changed it because we exposed it. I mean, that's wrong. And they say this has some significant errors. The FTC estimates that up to 30 million workers have been required to sign non-compete agreements that bar them from working for a competing firm for a certain period after leaving their current job, which I also have. I work in the maintenance industry, which has proprietary technologies and talents and resources. And they don't want you to go share those talents, ideas, and resources with another company within X amount of time of you leaving our company. That makes sense. May not be fair if we're talking about having a free and open workplace, but if you agree to these conditions upon hiring, it's your fault for taking it. Accept it. But when Biden brought up fast food workers, he confused non-compete clauses with a different legal restriction, no poach clauses. No poach clauses were included in the agreements that local fast food franchise owners signed with the parent company. The clauses barred them from luring workers away from fellow franchisees. The workers never saw those contracts, much less ever signed one. Next section. He said, and this was about the jobs, I stand here tonight after we've created with the help of many people in this room, 12 million new jobs. More jobs created in 2 years than any president's created in 4 years. Biden is correct about 12 million jobs created, but his comparison with previous presidents is half true. In raw numbers, Biden did oversee greater job growth than any post-World War II president's first or second term in office. However, this achievement comes with asterisks. Population growth skews the calculation, with Biden benefiting from a larger population, measured by percentage increase from the time the president took office, which reduces the impact of population size. Biden rates in the middle of the pack. Oh, that seems to be like Biden. He'll tell you that he graduated top of his class from college, yet he was actually in the lower half of his class. And although Biden has outpaced every post-World War II president in job gains per year, he benefited by taking office on the upswing of a deep recession. In other words, most of Biden's seeming successes are because of what Trump set up. Next, Biden said nearly 25% of the entire national debt that took over 200 years to accumulate was added by just one administration alone, the last one. These are facts. Check it out, he said. This is half true. Biden's number checks out, but the figure leaves out important details and context. Assigning debt to a particular president can be misleading. Much of the debt traces back to decades-old bipartisan legislation that set the parameters for Social Security and Medicare. Meanwhile, let's skip just a little bit ahead. If you look at the raw amount of debt added during a presidency, Barack Obama, who governed with Biden as vice president, ranks first and Trump ranks second. Obama's figure is so much larger than Trump's, partly because he served 8 years, while Trump only served 4. If you divide the debt accumulated during each president's tenure by the number of years they served, Biden, with only 2 years in office, has seen the largest rise in debt with Trump second and Obama third. So depending on how you look at the numbers, Biden's twisting it to make himself look better because he doesn't want to admit that he has failed. In the last 2 years, he says, my administration cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion. That's a sneaky way of saying it because we're $31.7 trillion in debt. Actually, let's pull it up real quick. nationaldebtclock.org. There we go. Look at this together. They're going to tell you that he cut the national debt, or not the national debt, sorry, that he cut the deficit by more than $1.7 trillion, which is very confusing because here we are at $31 trillion still and growing every second of every single day. You can look at this. I brought it up in several episodes. You can see how much it's costing average citizens, how much average credit card debt there is in the world. But here's the deficit that they keep trying to highlight. The deficit here is what? 1,403,408,000,000 and growing. So Biden takes away 170 trillion. Cool. We're still, or sorry, what was it? 170 billion, they said? 1.7 trillion, sorry. Forgive me. So if we take away 1.7 trillion from the federal deficit budget, I mean, I'm not sure how these numbers break down, but that takes away almost nothing from the national debt up here, top left. 31 trillion. If you take off 1.7 trillion, cool, we still are $30 trillion, 29 point something trillion dollars in debt. We owe money to everyone, to everything. And yet here we are saying that, or here he is trying to say that he keeps cutting the deficit, and this time by more than 1.7 trillion. Well, PolitiFact says this needs context. Biden has a point that his administration has presided over smaller deficits than those under Trump's administration, based on Congressional Budget Office estimates, but Biden's remark leaves out important context. Most recent estimate projects a 2022 deficit of about $944 billion. That's much less than the $2.7 trillion the previous year. However, the debt had risen in 2021 because of a temporary phase of unusual federal spending due to the coronavirus pandemic. In absolute dollars, the current deficit is much more in line with what it was in pre-pandemic 2019. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months, while take-home pay has gone up. This first part is accurate. Year over year, inflation peaked around 9% in June and has fallen to a little higher than 6%. Whether take-home pay has gone up is more complicated. You may have gotten a raise, which would seem as though you got more take-home pay, but then when you talk about, the food crisis, the baby food crisis, your rent's going up, your energy bill's going up, the cost of gas still up higher than what it should be, you're paying way more than you're used to, and even your 3% raise doesn't account for the 28% rise of inflation in the cost of your normal living goods. So no, it's not accurate. In 2020, 55 of the largest corporations in America, the Fortune 500, made $40 billion in profits and paid zero in federal taxes. This is mostly true. And do you know why? Because there are loopholes and legal laws that allow you, what am I trying to say here? If you invest properly, you will never have to pay federal taxes ever. And that is what most of our politicians, bureaucrats, elected leaders, they know these. They know these routes. They know these practices and trades. I mean, I listened to a guy on YouTube, Robert Kiyosaki, I think his name is, and he talks about this stuff all the time, about how he owns debt. He makes money off of debt. I'm still trying to figure all of this out, but it's something that lay people like you and I aren't taught. You and I aren't taught how to not pay taxes. You and I aren't taught how we evade, or not evade, but how we pay $0 in federal taxes, even if we made 40 billion in profits. You and I aren't taught things like that. But every elite, every politician knows this. And Hillary Clinton tried to call Trump out for using these loopholes. And then Trump called Hillary out saying, "Shut up, woman. You use the exact same loopholes that I do. That's why you never changed them." All right. Last one we're going to wrap up with here. I mean, there's a ton. His whole speech was just a fallacy. In the 10 years, the assault weapons ban was law. Mass shootings went down. After we let it expire under Republican administration, mass shootings tripled. This is, and I'll kind of go along with what they say. This is mostly true, but inaccurate if you're looking at cultural shifts. Yes, mass shootings took place before Biden's 1994 federal assault weapons ban and during the 10 years or so that it was active. And then, yes, we have had more mass shootings since. But there's been a huge shift in culture, in politics, in the way people bring up their kids and how they raise their kids, how we treat each other. So I don't particularly like how he phrased this, because it's kind of bullshit. Let me explain. He tries to blame it on a Republican administration. Well, what do you know? Sleepy Joe forgot how politics have worked over the last 10 years. Sleepy Joe enacted this 1994 crime bill called the assault weapons ban, right? And here from USA Today, when he talked about Biden applauded Congress for approving bipartisan legislation last year to keep guns out of the hands of dangerous people, but called on Congress to go further by banning assault weapons. What these two articles are leaving out, and let me go back to here. When Joe Biden made this law, they weren't sure whether or not it was going to have any effect, how long it should be enacted for, where there should be some type of permanent legislation. So what they did was they made, I believe it's called a sunset clause, basically saying if this is ineffective or whatever, after 10 years or whatever the timeline was, then it's going to be taken off the books. And after 10 years or so, after they reviewed the data, they found that it was ineffective. The data was mixed at best and was inconclusive at best. So no, it wasn't under a Republican administration that let it expire. It was due to its natural timeline that it expired because it was rendered ineffective. It has nothing to do with a Republican administration having sat while it expired, nor does it have anything to do with mass shootings tripling because this bill expired under a Republican administration. You're trying to draw a conclusion there. Like, the cause and effect is not there. There may be correlation, but it's not always, or there's causation there, but that doesn't always equal correlation, right? So that's all of the fact checking I wanted to do. I wanted to jump over to USA Today to share a little bit about some of President Biden's wish list items and talk about them a little bit. One of them was gun violence, right? Where they write here, the measure, which was signed into law last June, passed just weeks after a deadly mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. It was the largest gun control package to clear Congress in 30 years. And they're so proud of it. They're proud because they want to ban assault weapons. They're proud because they want to trample on the Second Amendment using whatever backdoor verbiage they can come up with to steal your constitutional rights from under your feet. That is tyrannical. And we know what happens to tyrannical governments, or at least what is legally allowed to happen to tyrannical governments in the United States of America here. Why do they want to take away assault weapons, something they can't define, something that has no definition. Well, Joe Biden wants you to have a shotgun with what, 1 or 2 rounds, or he wants you to have a handgun with 1 round. He doesn't think you need a magazine. 1 bullet. Do you know what that translates to in fascist, authoritarian, socialist, any type of totalitarian regime? The reason they want you to have that 1 bullet is not so you can defend yourself. It's so that you can end yourself. Because you will not agree with the policies that they're going to enact upon you, your friends, your neighbors, your community. They don't want you to rise up. That's why they don't want you to have more than 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 30, 50 bullets. Because they know that if you can rise up, you will. So what do? They try every backdoor to restrict ammo, to restrict safe gun usage, and to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, to take away large capacity magazines. Sure, these are used in mass shootings. However, these can also be used in mass defense. Think about it. A guy using his AR-15 during a mass shooting, let's say he has a 30-round clip, 30-round magazine. Cool. Guess what? I also have an AR-15 build. It's in a 300 blackout rifling, but anyway, I've got a 300 blackout rifle styled an AR-15, and so does he. He's got an AR-15. However, I also have 30 rounds. So if it has to turn into a gunfight, we're on equal footing. If I have 1 bullet and a mass shooter is just running loose and he has, let's say, hundreds of magazines on him, the police are going to take hours to get there, and then even then hours to assemble, and then hours to come in. What do you think that 1 bullet is for? Do you think it's for stopping the mass shooter that Joe Biden wants to give you? Do you think that 1 bullet is for stopping the mass shooter? No, it's for stopping yourself. Police reform. Biden cited recent allegations of police brutality, paying tribute to Tyree Nichols, and called for passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Look, we all get it. There are instances of police brutality, and then there are drummed up instances of police brutality. I think most people are sick and tired of hearing the police just absolutely berated. And I think most people are sick and tired of hearing the police indiscriminately defended. We have to call these incidents for what they are. There's some bad incidents that happen with police every single day, and there's millions of great interactions that occur with law enforcement every single day. We have to call it what it is. Abortion rights. Biden said rights must be protected, but Biden has limited power to do so. Biden wants to codify abortion rights at the federal level while once again failing to recognize or show any kind of respect or decorum to a Supreme Court's decision. It was the Supreme Court who decided to overturn Roe v. Wade, which didn't overturn abortion. It just left the decisions to the states, which is how this country is supposed to operate. The states get to decide things. I mean, this is an argument for abolishing the federal government. We don't need the federal government there to tell us what to do and what not to do when the states have their own powers. The real reason we have a federal government is, primarily defense. Let's be honest. Budget deficit. We've already talked about this, but he claims that, he wants to continue making tax, cuts here and there to save money. He had a whole list of things he listed out of, we're going to cut money here, cut money there, cut money here. Great. We'll see how much of an impact it has. Student debt relief. Biden noted his administration is making progress in reducing student loan debt and increasing Pell Grants. The Pell Grant is increasing by $500. Isn't the Pell Grant funded by taxpayers? So you mean to tell me we're going to have to pay more to the Pell Grant? Rising to nearly $7,400 for the 2023 fiscal year, for the former max award of $6,895. Now, Biden's sweeping student debt relief program is in limbo. The question is whether the administration overstepped its authority by attempting to wipe out $400 billion in student loan debt unilaterally without going through Congress. Let's remind ourselves, Congress has to approve or deny any spending that happens within government. Biden tried to do so through an existing law enacted after 9/11 that doesn't explicitly say anything about forgiving debt. Oh, once again, Biden doesn't care about what the federal government or federal court has to say. He just wants to do things his own way. Gotcha. For all you Antifa folks, that's fascism. That's authoritarianism. For all the shit that you screamed about Trump being, you are. Border security. Biden vowed to secure the United States southern border and fix the immigration system, saying there's a record number of personnel working at the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, he talked about we need to implement new kinds of like electronic security, like drones and cameras and this type of stuff to monitor the border. I don't know how long we're going to have to yell about this, argue about it. I don't know how many times people on the right have to say it. Finish building the fucking wall. That's going to be your greatest asset. Build a fucking wall 30 feet high with razor wire all along it. So in case people do try to climb it, they get cut up and it ain't worth it. And they have to turn back. And it is impossible for them to come over. You make multiple layers of this. So in case the first wall is blown up, which can happen quite easily, there's multiple layers. You want to add layers of redundancy to your safety. You want to make it so that way the enemy gets tired of trying to advance upon you and making no ground. And he says he's going to make the United States southern border more secure. Really? When you, let alone your vice president, who is the border czar, haven't been down there during your presidency, haven't done a single fucking thing down there to help with the immigration crisis other than encourage it, and then complain when immigrants get dropped off on your doorstep. Right. God, this president's a joke. Immigration reform. Biden urged Congress to pass a pathway for citizenship for dreamers and farm workers, a more narrow ask than comprehensive immigration reform. How many times are we going to have the conversation? When are we going to actually do something about it? Illegal immigrants, no matter your country that you're from, if you are here illegally, meaning you overstayed your visa, you came here illegally and you don't have a visa, or whatever it is, you had a student visa, you overstayed that, it expired, whatever. If you've been in here for 3 years or less, you can stay. 4 years or more, we're going to deport you. Whatever the numbers is, whatever the years are, figure it out and put it into law. I'm sick and tired of hearing about this argument we've had since fucking Bush. Do something about it. That's what y'all keep screaming about. Do something. And here we go. Fentanyl. Biden is pushing for Congress to do more to stop the flow and production of fentanyl, which has killed as many as 70,000 Americans last year. While he leaves out that Border Patrol seized enough fentanyl last year that could have killed, what was it, half of America? Yeah. Border Patrol is doing their job. Why do we still have a problem with fentanyl? Oh, that's right, Biden, because you don't want to address it. Fentanyl is coming in from China and Chinese Communist Party agents through Mexican cartels, through the Mexican border and through other borders, obviously. And that's how it's getting into the hands of Americans. When are you going to do something about that, Joe Biden? When are you going to close up the border? When are you going to start deporting illegal migrants when they commit crimes? Or, I mean, they're here illegally. They're committing a crime. When are you going to deport them? When are you going to build this wall? See, all he does with this wish list of items is say things that sound great to the Democratic Party and make him sound like a perfect ruler. But does he have a plan for any of this? No. If he does have a plan, it's the wrong plan and is ineffective and it won't work. And if he says he has a plan, he's lying to you about it. And that's the end of that. So, my friends, that's all I have for you today, talking about debunking Biden's State of the Union address. And what a waste of time it was. I mean, I didn't even intend to watch it, to be honest with you. I was sitting there at my hotel room, getting ready to turn on, I don't know, Cartoon Network, see if maybe Scooby-Doo was on. And there it was on every channel, Biden's State of the Union address. And for the first 30 minutes, I'll admit, it wasn't terrible. During his whole speech, it's probably his best speech he's given so far. He sounded less bumbly and stumbly. He had less whispers and less screaming outbursts than usual. He forgot where he was or what he was talking about less than usual. He had a fairly good speech. I'll give him that. It was one of his best speeches I've seen in a long time. I'll give him that. But I question if it has to do with his dementia and, like, you know, sunset hours where, like, you're kind of peaked, like during your dementia. Your clearest moments during your dementia are generally early in the morning or late at night. And I'm wondering if that has something to do with the timing of his speech, because I was not excited. Again, it was a work night for me. I was not excited to have to stay up till midnight or whenever he wanted to end his speech, but luckily it was a fairly short speech relatively. But I lost my mind during it. I couldn't stand being lied to. I got tired of hearing omitted truths, omitted facts, omitted data, manipulated data just to try to make him look better. When all we want as Americans, Joe Biden, is for you to accept some responsibility. Admit that your policies suck. You suck. You've done damage to this country. The Democratic Party and its far left progressive ideology has done damage to this country and its citizens. You working with the Chinese Communist Party and egging on this war in Ukraine has done nothing but hurt America and American citizens. That's what we wanted to hear. We wanted to hear that you recognize where the fault is and that you have a realistic and idealistic solution to these problems, which you obviously have none. Just goes to show more of your incompetency, which is why this video is going to be uploaded to my playlist under Biden's inadequacies. I've got a whole playlist dedicated to it. Anyway, I thank you for coming back, my friends. If you or anyone didn't want to watch the State of the Union address, please share this video to them. That way they don't have to watch it, but they can see that Biden basically lied to you the whole entire time. And they can just hear the facts without having to listen through an hour and a half of bullshit politic clapping. I appreciate y'all coming back here. Please like this video and subscribe. That way you're notified whenever I upload a video. I'm going to start recording on Sundays, maybe posting on Mondays. We'll kind of see how it goes with viewer membership or viewer retention and whatnot when everyone likes to watch these videos. But I'm going to keep doing the shorts content to try and bring just more content to you in the daytime. Help keep you informed when you're sitting there in the bathroom, bored. Whenever you've got a few seconds, hopefully there will be a video that'll keep you informed. I appreciate you coming back, my friends, and I'll see you next week.